For many of us who love a good story, there's a real familiar comfort in romance novels, right? You know that feeling, that perfectly planned meet cute. Maybe it's the charming barista or, the mysterious stranger in the bookstore.
Or the enemies to lovers trope we all kind of secretly love.
Exactly. We sort of anticipate this meticulously planned story unfolding. We rely on those tropes, They give us that warmth, that predictability.
Jeff, that satisfying feeling.
But what happens when a love story isn't planned? Like, at all. When it's not tidy, when it just refuses to follow any script. And instead it kind of shows up in the most, hilariously awkward, gloriously unglamorous way.
And what's truly fascinating about the series we're going to dive into today is exactly that. It just throws those conventional expectations right out the window. It offers this remarkably refreshing and frankly brave take on modern love. We're exploring KJ's new series, Beautiful Men, and we're starting with the first book, The Dog Walker. And it's not your typical romance. Its actual strength, I think, lies in how it deviates.
Right.
It feels like a book really designed to resonate with romance readers who, they've loved the classics, but maybe now they're yearning for something that feels genuinely new, something authentic, maybe a bit more reflective of how real connections actually, happen.
Absolutely. So our mission for this deep dive then is really to unpack how The Dog Walker challenges those genre expectations. How does it manage to portray connection in a way that feels incredibly real? Maybe even uncomfortably real sometimes, but in a good way.
In the best way, yeah.
This is for anyone out there looking for a love story that feels less like a fantasy maybe, and more like looking in a mirror, reflecting that beautiful, messy reality of our lives. Let's really dig in.
Let's do it.
So to get the unique flavor of The Dog Walker, we have to start with something pretty surprising from the author herself. KJ says, quite plainly, I didn't set out to write a love story. Wow.
Okay.
She wasn't chonsciously chasing tropes or trying to engineer the next book boyfriend. Just think about that for a second, especially in a genre that's often defined by those things. It feels counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Totally. It really does.
She said she was just living, experiencing things, fumbling, feeling. And apparently from that raw, kind of unedited reality, this whole series emerged. It wasn't plotted out, it just unfolded.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, that organic, authentic start is exactly what gives the series its power, its pull. The stories in Beautiful Men, they are, as she puts it, drawn from real life. Not direct transcripts, obviously, but more like echoes, inspired moments, feelings that demanded a voice. And she talks about the kind of real life stuff that fueled it, the big heartbreaks, those tender, beautiful almosts.
Oh, those, yeah.
Right. And the laughter with friends that echoed long after the night ended. Or those really relatable mornings spent wondering if I'd ever get it right. This isn't just background info. It feels like the bedrock, the foundation that grounds the whole series in something profoundly human.
It feels earned.
Exactly. Because it was lived.
And then there's the title itself, Beautiful Men. You might, smile at it or scoff or sigh, like the author mentions.
Yeah.
But the book quickly redefines what beautiful really means in this context. It's explicitly not about handsome faces or cinematic kisses.
Okay, interesting.
For KJ, beautiful means the men who surprised me, the ones she tried not to fall for, and maybe most importantly, the ones she never stopped thinking about.
So it shifts the focus.
Completely, from an external ideal to an internal lasting impact.
And that redefinition brings up a really important point about self-discovery within relationships, doesn't it? The book also explores men who held space, men who taught me, who told the truth, the supportive ones.
Right.
But just as crucial are the men who, as she says, let me down. Because often it was through those challenging, maybe disappointing experiences that she discovered parts of myself I didn't know were there.
That's profound.
Isn't it? So what's really fascinating is how love in this portrayal becomes less about just finding the perfect external match and more about this ongoing journey of internal revelation, self-discovery.
Okay.
It's about how other people, whether they fit some traditional idea of beauty or not, whether the connection was planned or totally unexpected, how they ultimately shine a light on pieces of ourselves we might never have seen otherwise.
So if these stories came from such a raw, unplanned, honest place, how does that translate onto the page? How does love actually unfold? Let's maybe pivot to one of the core themes here, openness. Just take a second, maybe think about your own life. What do you carry with you to protect yourself? We all have our armor, don't we? Our defenses.
That's such a powerful question because the author tackles this head on in her own journey.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about her past reliance on composure, on always having the right words.
Yeah. It's the script.
Exactly. On self-protection armor, logic, backup plans, even pre-scripted conversations. These are the tools she thought were essential for navigating life, keeping everything neat and organized. And for a long time, she says, they worked until they didn't.
Right, when reality hits.
Yeah. Because, as she realized, none of that stuff truly prepares you for real connection. Especially, she says, not the deep kind. The kind that inherently disrupts your patterns. It just bypasses all those carefully built walls.
And this is where it gets really compelling, I think, because the revelation is so liberating. The most important thing to carry isn't strength or certainty or a perfect life plan. It's your openness.
Yes.
It's described as something softer, less certain, infinitely more alive. It's just that willingness to be vulnerable, which, let's be honest, can feel absolutely terrifying.
Oh, completely.
It's like shedding that armor for something way more fragile, but maybe ultimately more powerful.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And in The Dog Walker, openness isn't about having it all figured out or being perfectly polished. It's shown as the openness to fumble, to feel, to be seen, even to stay in the room when everything in you wants to run.
Which is hard.
So hard. And this is such a big shift from typical romance stories where characters often navigate every hurdle with like perfect poise and witty comebacks.
Yeah.
Here you get moments where Sarah, the main character, she's trying so hard to be composed, but maybe she spills coffee down her front or just stumbles over her words talking to Andy. And instead of some charming recovery, the book shows her genuine embarrassment. Right?
Yeah.
And Andy's equally genuine, unscripted reaction. Maybe it's a laugh. Maybe it's just a shared awkward look.
All right.
But that moment forges a deeper, more human connection than any perfectly planned interaction ever could.
It feels real.
It really does. The book embraces this counterintuitive idea. Let love make a mess of your carefully organized life, and then laugh, because maybe that's what you needed more than perfection. That's where it feels so different, less polished, profoundly more human.
And this brave theme, this idea of openness, it's woven right into the fabric of the dog walker through Sarah's journey. The book asks us, right along with her, what does it mean to stay open when it feels so much safer to just shut down? And maybe more universally, what happens when we stop scripting our lives and just show up as we are? It's a question for all of us, really, isn't it? What kind of love finds you when you actually let your guard down and let life get a little bit messy?
Okay, so let's finally meet these characters who embody this messy, real love in The Dog Walker.
Oh.
We get introduced to Sarah, and I have a feeling you're going to find her incredibly relatable.
Okay.
She's a woman who, honestly, like a lot of us, overthinks everything. She constantly finds herself in the most hilariously awkward situations, and she's always trying her best to keep it together while everything feels like it's falling apart. Sound familiar?
Maybe a little.
The author even describes her, kind of playfully, as being a lot like me, and maybe like you two, often hiding behind sarcasm or speed. And what makes Sarah so wonderfully human is seeing how her overthinking actually plays out, like trying to craft the perfect casual text to Andy and instead sending something completely awkward but hilariously honest.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but it's in those fumbled moments that their connection feels the most authentic. She wants to be brave, but it's clearly tough, and the story really captures that internal struggle.
And then disrupting her carefully managed world in the most unexpected and wonderfully confusing way is Andy. He's simply the man walking her dog. Isn't it a perfect everyday metaphor for how love often shows up? It's not always some grand gesture or dramatic movie moment. Sometimes love just walks into your life totally unannounced, like a man holding a dog leash and a question you didn't even know your heart wanted to answer.
That's beautiful.
It's this quiet, everyday disruption that just slowly, beautifully starts to upend everything.
And we absolutely cannot forget Sowley, the dog.
Right.
The dog.
Who honestly possibly has better instincts than either of them.
Probably true.
It's such a charming, grounding detail that love literally arrives through a side door wearing muddy shoes and holding a dog named Sowley.
Muddy shoes. Perfect.
And Sally isn't just like a cute prop. He feels like a third character almost. A symbol of the unpolished, kind of earthy reality this relationship embraces. He just adds to the unpredictable, warm chaos that defines their connection.
It really does. This book truly feels refreshingly different.
Yeah.
Because it's not just romantic, and it's definitely not polished. It's genuinely funny, but most importantly, it's the kind of messy that feels real.
Yes, exactly that.
It explores not just romance, not the polished kind that ties everything up neatly, but the human kind. Or any romance reader out there who might be a bit tired of the perfectly orchestrated tropes or, the grand gestures that feel a bit out of reach.
Yeah.
This book is such a breath of fresh air. It gets that sometimes the most profound love stories happen in the everyday, totally unglamorous moments of just connecting. And ultimately, this whole series, starting with The Dog Walker, it's positioned by KJ as a kind of profound love letter. A love letter to the men who surprised us, to the women we've been through all the ups and downs, and to the wild, beautiful, maddening ways we try again to connect.
That's lovely.
Feels like a story written from a real place, a really tender one. So whether you've loved deeply or awkwardly, and who hasn't done both, or whether you've lost something important along the way, or maybe discovered yourself somewhere you didn't expect to, this story really feels like it's for you. It's for anyone who recognizes that nuanced, beautiful reality of modern love that, doesn't always follow a neat script.
Beautiful Men. The Dog Walker really stands out because it doesn't chase those familiar tropes or promise some shiny, perfect ending. Instead, it offers this honest, real-life inspired journey into, the courage of openness. It shows us how the most powerful connections often form exactly when we stop trying to script our lives and just show up as we are. It truly is the kind of authentic, messy love story that feels so wonderfully, profoundly real.
Which maybe raises an important question for you listening right now to think about. If openness is something you have to re-choose over and over in your own life, what new unplanned stories might start to unfold for you? What could happen if you chose to embrace that willingness to just say, okay, I don't know what this is, but I'm here and I'm listening. What beautiful unscripted connections might be waiting just around the corner?
That is definitely a thought worth sitting with. We really encourage you to explore Beautiful Men, The Dog Walker by KJ. You can find it out now on Kindle and paperback, and it's included in Kindle Unlimited too, all via Amazon.
It's a great read.
Because sometimes, the stories we don't plan for, the ones that kind of disrupt our carefully built worlds, maybe those are the ones we truly needed all along.